Over the years, and you talk about various movements that have been there. Back in the 1950s, there were earnest men in corduroy jackets with leather patches who talked about the campaign for nuclear disarmament and went on marches, and nobody got blown to bits by atomic weapons. No. In the 1960s, there was the Cuban Missile Crisis, there was the Vietnam War. Lots of people have always said that the world is going to end. And can you understand people who've experienced that, who think, look, we were lectured on pollution in the 1970s. We were told we're all going to die of AIDS. We were told that ISIS was going to rain hell down on us, and nothing has happened. So when people talk about an extinction or talk about a crisis, can you understand people narrowing their eyes and thinking, we've heard all this before?
I can totally understand, but I think the thing is, climate change is almost a constant. It is not the science like with nuclear disarmament. Oh yes, it's possible that we could end the world through nuclear weapons being fired, but that all depends on a human. It all depends on someone actually pressing the button to actually send that missile. Climate change isn't something that humans have directly in their control. We impact it. We can speed it up. We can speed it up as much as possible if we actually didn't do anything. But at the end of the day, it is now inevitable that we are seeing the effects of climate change, and it's not like, oh yes, it could happen, it's a possibility. It is now being viewed as something that is inevitable, and it is, at the moment, if we continue on the path we are, it will keep on getting worse.
What are the effects of climate change?
So you could see a massive rise in sea level. We could see...
But here and now, what are the effects that we're seeing of climate change?
So we're seeing a mass increase of our storms. I know in geography we study the case study of Super Typhoon Haiyan. It was a freak weather event, and these are becoming more regular. They weren't expecting the storm surge in Indonesia. The recent Hurricane Dorian, which hit the States, which was devastating and awful to see, that is all being sped up by climate change.
But I mean, there have always been avalanches and wildfires and hurricanes and tornadoes. Volcanoes have always erupted. We've always had floods and mudslides, heat waves and droughts. These things have always happened.
I think they're coming at a more... They're becoming more constant. They're happening nearly every day now. And when you read the news, you used to think, oh dear, there's a hurricane. That was kind of a shock as an event. But now it becomes normal. It becomes normal that there's a hurricane going on.
Do you think that's just because communication is instantaneous and worldwide?
I mean,
years ago, we didn't have 24-hour news. We didn't have the internet. We didn't know if something was happening.
If you look even, well, in the time I've been growing up, we've had almost the internet for easily the past 10 years of that more 24-hour news, and we have seen nearly every day, yes, there's a wildfire, and I've seen it increase. It's been increasing like tenfold of the amount that's been happening of these natural disasters.
What a load of 4 letters from your tree hugger. Meanwhile, back in the real world, from an anonymous source, climate change can be... Oh, this is another one. Climate change can be solved by saving the rainforests globally. Another note says, I think your guest has just confirmed that the hysteria is around climate change is an article of faith in the emerging authoritarian quasi-religions who wish to overturn governments and society is at the heart of the movement. Not the people on the ground, misguided as they are, but the upper strata of the movement is aimed at destabilizing societies. The elites are in charge of this. Are you being manipulated by an elite?
I am. I can say I'm not being manipulated by the elites. I'm not being manipulated by the government. I'm out there actually protesting against the government, and I would totally disagree that I am being controlled by an elite. I'd also say just because I support the environment does not mean I'm a tree hugger. I'm not some sort of eco-hippie who's totally removed myself from society. I just feel very strongly about the science and what has been shown will happen.
Is this a generational divide?
I don't. I think it's now becoming a cross-generational issue, and we have seen people from all generations actually think we need to act now.
Let's see, a note in that says, can we hear both sides of the climate change narrative? Why do they close down debate when anybody challenges their official government stance? We've heard from all these horror stories in the 80s and the 90s. We were told all sorts of horrors that didn't take place. or the climate change emergency creates wealth for fat cats, governments and big corporations while restricting our freedoms. It seems there's a lot of work to do. Some people are very sceptical about all this.
Well, I'd say it's almost, if we get those through social media, not to our face. It's quite interesting. People won't go and approach you and then confront you with this so-called evidence, and I don't believe. Yeah, it is true.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk a lot more about this in the future because it's one of the central points of debate at the moment. Let me see. A note in from Alex says, what is your ultimate argument in shutting down those who deny climate change? What's your killer argument? How do you shut people up?
Well, I think the ones now who still are disbelievers in climate change and climate change deniers, it will be incredibly hard to persuade them that it is, because I feel they're quite fixed. But it's almost moving forward on to what we can do to save the environment. It's moving on to how we can impact our daily lives. And I don't believe big corporations are making money from the climate emergency. The big oil corporations are certainly losing money because people are realizing they're actually harming the environment. Most of the big corporations aren't necessarily beneficial.
Okay, but again, we come back to this question. And again, people believe in conspiracy theories. That it's a human nature. But the talk of people like George Soros funding this basically to overturn the world order, and that the Extinction Rebellion is purely a far-left organisation that wants to dismantle a capitalist system.
If anyone views environmentalists as far-left or left-wing, I would totally disagree. I do not. I'm not left-wing. I don't support any of the like Labour Party. I don't support any socialism or communism necessarily. I believe in a form of free market capitalism, and that's more centre right. It's not. I believe in a form of ethical capitalism. I think it can still work. Capitalism can still work on an ethical basis. It's not big corporations. I don't believe they should have big corporations. But I don't think you can brand anyone as being on either side of the political spectrum just for believing in the environment.
Okay, a person got in touch and said, walking is the answer. If we tried looking backwards, if people walk more, there will be fewer emissions. The obesity problems in society will be addressed as well. Two birds with one stone. Why can't we build one giant wind turbine, 2,500 feet high? It will be the angel of our Earth. Mexico, make climate change can be solved by saving all the rainforest globally. Yes, so we've had that one already. To be inside the bubble that your guest is in. A load of twaddle, says Neil. Mass movement of people by plane is currently the best way to get around. Take a train or bus and boat to Africa or elsewhere. Get real. Eco people are delusional. Are you delusional, Archie?
Well, of course I would say I'm not. I don't believe I'm delusional in all of these things. I base my facts on science and research, which has been very highly accredited. And I think it's just it is a shame that there's all negativity about people who actually care for the environment and want to help. I think we should be moving forward in a more positive manner and kind of looking at our solutions, not arguing on the facts, which I believe are quite straightforward and are already published and accepted by what was now 97% of world scientists. And I think that's something very important to actually move forwards and be more positive. I think it's pointless just complaining and not giving any solutions.
Archie Elliott's been with us today, the Isle of Man Student Climate Network. I've not mentioned this before, but Archie's a student at Castle Rushen, am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 15.
15 years of age. Well, the world is yours and the future is yours. Are you going into politics?
Well, my aim would one day to enter into some sort of political job, and I think that's one of my very keen interests.